This may look like an ordinary bedroom community of Boston, but it isn't. About 40 years ago, if you had peeked inside this house, you would have seen a little girl discovering a magical world.
I think probably very young I was given a marionette stage, and I animated things and made them come alive. That I do know that I had puppets very young. I didn't like dolls. I loathed dolls. Those were girly things.
I was always putting on shows, and I was always sculpting and painting. And I really had incredible parents. I was very free. I was the youngest, an older brother and sister by 6 years, and I was let alone at a very young age.
I think she saw that her father and her mother were the kinds of people who didn't give up. We stuck with our principles. We fought for our ideals. She knew we were both very political.
I was always aware that they always had something to talk about. And I remember sitting in cars and journeys and watching these two people just talk about politics and history and novels and theater, and they were extremely in love. You know, just a tremendous couple that really produced together.
Julie was only 10 years old when she began a journey that would last a lifetime.
She knew she wanted to go to the Boston Children's Theater at a very early age. She said, I found this in the paper. That's what I'd like to do. And I'd say, Julie, do you know where that is? It's downtown. What a drag, meaning I'll have to take you after school, wait for you while you do the things. She'd say, oh, no, that's okay. I'll take the T, the public transportation. And I said, oh, no, you won't. She was very young.
Well, I think one of the things that was very astounding about this was I was from a middle-class, upper-middle-class neighborhood, predominantly white. And Boston Children's Theater drew kids from Cambridge, South Boston, Dorchester. So at a very young age, I was working with other kids who were from very different levels of income. And I think that's a tremendous plus.
The first part that she got was Cinderella. She called me and said, I got the part of Cinderella. And I said, oh, Julie, that's so wonderful. Congratulations, on the telephone. She said, well, I'm really disappointed. I said, why? She said, I would have much rather been one of the stepsisters. I said, you would? I didn't like playing the goody-goody parts like Cinderella and Snow White. I wanted to play the stepmother and the bad sisters, and I never would get cast as those. And later on, when I came to New York and started acting, I would just be up for ingenues. And I think I was really always a character actress, but when you're young and you're 17 and you're a pretty girl without much character in your face, you don't get those roles.
And then it happened. A turning point at 21. After graduating from Oberlin College, a fellowship led Julie to study theater in the Far East. And eventually, faraway Indonesia.
This was the 3 months that ended up being 4 years. This is really the beginning of me as a director, I think, was my time in Indonesia. And I decided to stay there and create this theater company, Pt2. I was living in Bali with my theater company, which was composed of Javanese, Balinese, Sundanese, a Frenchman, a German, and myself. And we rehearsed in this little village with no electricity. We all lived together, no running water. On a $7,000 Ford Foundation grant, I kept 10, 12 people alive for a year.
It was here that Taymor began to experiment with what would become one of her signature techniques.
It is shocking and amazing what happens when people put on a mask. We think that's going to cover up their personalities. Quite the opposite. What really happens is that what's inside the actor is released. Why did I start directing in Indonesia? In a way, I wasn't a woman anymore. I was sort of, as a Western woman, more masculine. But to be in a position of directing a company was totally unique. And I think this is partly because I was already outside the culture. In a way, it was easier for me to do that in Indonesia than it was even here.
We were en route to go to Sumatra, Sulawesi, Java, and Bali, a big tour. And we took the ferry and the night bus, and we got to Surabaya, and on the road, we crashed. And I have a huge scar here. You can see it if I do certain things. I had glass in my neck. One of my partner, his back was broken. A woman's leg. I mean, it was a disaster.
We got the phone call after it had happened, and didn't, you know, my husband, I can remember what happened then, is that her face was cut, and her beautiful face, and I thought, oh my God, this is awful.
I had 2 operations. Everybody had to go to various hospitals. All our money got used up. You're in a country like that, and I thought, oh my God, I didn't take care of these people. What have I done? We're not supposed to go. You know, all of these big signs are going, go away.
I always had the feeling that she wouldn't do anything that would be destructive of herself. I think she had a lot of respect for herself early on, and that gave her a certain independence and made her strong.
This is extremely important for me. This is fall off the horse, get back on the horse, and I'm not going to desert these people.
It's very clearly, to me, Indonesia was trial by fire. Fire is the transforming medium.
There is no theater without fire because there is no light. The first light to create shadows by is the firelight. It's dangerous, and yet it changes you forever. So for me, Indonesia was about incredible loneliness. I mean, I was crying half the time, I'm sure. And wondering, crying and not going home.
In Indonesia, JulieTaymor witnessed theater at its most sacred, and she came to believe that the purpose of art is in the act of creating it.
So I have no connection with these people anymore, but I know that they affected my life in a great, great way, and this incredible campur, the Indonesian word, this mixing of religion and culture and worldview affected everybody very much.
Certainly her devotion to shadow puppetry and to mask theater and to dance theater is very much inspired by that experience. She was so inspired by a place where the theater and other art forms were part and parcel of everyday life.
Although she never returned, Taymor carried the spirit of Indonesia with her into the next stage of her artistic life.
I couldn't stay in Indonesia any longer. I'd been there 4 years, and I think, though it was incredible time for me, it was also exhausting to be a foreigner. In America, everybody belongs. When you're a foreigner in a place like Indonesia, you are always a foreigner.
And when we return,
They are very romantic, and they're so in love that you can see